Thank you for that. This is the last day. We have had an amazing week all over Brooklyn, Williamsburg. Next year we'll be all over Brooklyn. It'll be fun. So far, it was a really good experience, and we'll see how I fuck this up. So let's see how that goes. Today, what's going to happen is we are going to have an amazing late night writers panel, and afterwards there's another show. Chris, what is the next show afterwards? At the gutter. At the gutter. All right. So afterwards we can all go to the gutter and get drunk and talk about what just happened here. Let's talk about late night. We have an actual live stream happening. This is amazing at Ustream. I've been working on this for like 2 weeks trying to set this up with servers and a great company called Connesta, which is streaming this using LiveU. Add here, insert ad here. All right. So it's happening, and we have millions of viewers online right now all over the world. Michael, how many do we have so far? 3, 4. We have like three viewers, additional viewers online. We don't know if it's in the millions or not. It's not. It doesn't say. It's either 3,000. You don't know. You don't know. But we have some form of 3 happening. What? Oh, we already have a caller who wants to ask questions using my fake earpiece. Oh my God. This is a caller. I mean, the comedians are not here yet. The writers are not here. But let's see. Caller, are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, caller, you are live at the Brooklyn Comedy Festival. What is your question right now? We haven't even started. What's your question?
What the fuck? I told you not to call me. It's like 2 a.m. here.
No, caller, you called me, caller, but feel free to ask the question. What do you want to ask the comedians?
No, you know what? Fuck you. Ever since you went to America, it's like, whoa, I'm important. I'm American now.
I'm not important.
Everyone deals my schedule. Fucking button, you know? That is exactly why they hate Americans, you know? And I understand it. You wake us up, you want panel questions, then you get books. This is why I never watch stupid American television, you know? Fuck you and fuck America.
I'm sorry. I thought like a friend of mine from Israel will ask like good questions. But no, come on, just ask one question.
What shows are the people for the panel?
All right, great. We have writers from Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. We have writers from The Colbert Report. And obviously we have a writer from Nikki and Sarah Live. That's going to be amazing. So what do you want to ask?
We don't even get that here. We only get friends. You see the look. It goes on forever.
No.
We only get friends and reruns of Small Wonder with the robot girl. Here's the question. Who is your favorite friend?
Friend?
Ross? Rachel?
No,
are
not
they
Ross.
still alive? Are they still friends? Do they fight?
They don't know
Look
that.
at you, Mr. America, with
No,
your
okay,
Bill Clinton and your fancy words. I know fancy words. I know rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros
So
is not a
what's the
fancy word.
only question? How many of your stars take to change a light bulb?
No.
10 million. You stink. You're an idiot.
All right,
That's
all
not
right.
in America. Call us in the next podcast where you need somewhere to stay. I need to go now. My hummus pie is in the oven.
There was a reference there. Oh my God. All right, so we will not take any calls. Unfortunately, unless someone on Ustream is watching for some reason, because I only tweeted it once and I have 45 followers. But if one of those, we have 5 people. Oh, holy shit, we have 5 people. Hey, 5 people, extra people over there. So if one of you wants to insert questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Or if one of you guys wants to ask a question, once we get there, there's a mic here and you can feel free to ask. We'll get to that point. But now, let me introduce our panel members. Straight from Nikki and Sarah Live, Emmy Blotnick. Not literally straight. She came from a party, though. But, yeah. Hey. All right. We have Lou Cunningham from Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. And right after him, Gabe Grunley from the Colbert Report. Hey, panel members. So I'm going to switch right here. All right, guys, so here's the deal. Hey, guys.
Hey there.
Hi. That was
for Mike.
This. Thank you for this.
Well, it's going great.
So far, so good. So what's going to happen is
hey, buddy.
We're going to ask some questions. And where's my Brooklyn? Is that mine? Oh no.
Is this one it?
Oh,
this one
probably. Yeah, the half full. Just saying, Brooklyn is our sponsors for the comedy festival.
Yeah.
So what
a delicious sponsor it is.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Only $3 at the bar. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to talk...
sip a Brooklyn Pilsner bit that we were supposed to be a part of.
I'm really good at casually.
No.
All right. Sorry.
No. So we're probably just going to talk about your shows, talk about you as writers, and we're probably going to go off topic a lot. So feel free to ask any questions. And we can start.
Okay.
We can start from voice. So each one of you writes for different shows with a different tone of voice. And that distinct voice, Colbert, Fallon, Nick, and Sarah, it's very, very different. But when you come as a writer or even producer to the show, you sort of have to fit to that voice, even if it's not yours. What did you guys do when you sort of first started to try to fit that voice? I know you joined when it was a brand new show. Did you have any discussions on it, on what to do with that voice beforehand?
Well, yeah, because I normally write from more of a masculine, politically conservative standpoint.
Oh, you would be. There's this show that you would be good for.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I felt pretty lucky because Nikki and Sarah are I feel like we already had some stuff in common and knew each other, and it wasn't like a crazy stretch to write like that. I guess this is a good answer, right?
It came pretty naturally. But what about Colbert?
Well, I was a producer at Colbert for years. I started when the show started, and so I started as a PA there, and then eventually became a producer there and worked there for 7 years, and then actually left being a producer there to work at Nikki and Sarah. Where I worked with Emmy for the first season of Nikki and Sarah as a writer.
What?
And then came back. Just recently came back to Colbert. Was brought back as a writer at Colbert, and. So I think for me, the Colbert voice, I just became crazy familiar with it because I was producing there for so long and kind of there from the beginning, and so I kind of saw kind of the voice emerge and get clarified, and so I don't really know exactly. For me, it feels kind of innate at this point because I just I've been around for nearly every of the Colbert shows in some respect. So at some point, it just gets ingrained in you. But yeah, it is a very particular voice of that show. I think if I hadn't been kind of intimately involved from the beginning, it would be harder to just jump into it in a way. But yeah, I think, mine was just by circumstance that I just kind of, got ingrained in it, I think.
Okay. And Fallon has a very different voice.
Yeah, we generally run towards silly, so in the process, I write a lot of rap parodies. No, I think it's a lot of, just watching the show and kind of understanding the voice. Like, he would never do a joke that Colbert would do. Like, you guys run a little, obviously your guy is a character, he constantly stays in character, he's hilarious, but everything is tongue-in-cheek. And, our guy, the best part about writing for our guys, you can write anything. Like, I've written, you write the joke and then it's parentheses, panda impression. And you'll be like, I don't know, it gets picked or something to do. Did he execute a panda impression? He will do a lights out fucking panda impression.
What does it, how do you?
Pause, I can't do it, otherwise it's the reason it's not Late Night with Luke Cunningham. But he will do it and it crushes.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of that's the strength, is you can do anything, and he's not a mean guy. Like, you have to keep that in mind when you're writing for him. Yeah.
Yeah, the Colbert voice. Like, I mean, Steven said in interviews and things, he considers himself like a high status idiot, and so like.
Yeah, personally or the character?
The character.
Okay.
The character. It gets confused. They have the same name, which day one for me became very confusing.
Difficult.
Yeah, I was writing things for Steven to say in meetings. I didn't understand the job. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, there is that where like everything he says is tongue in cheek. So if you know. It is strange, like, you know, if in the room you come up with an idea that seems like that is just a funny idea, you do have to kind of sometimes figure out whether it's just generally a funny idea or if it like is a funny idea that could work on the show and work in his voice and in his.
Side note, there were a couple of episodes in 2006 before the congressional election where I played Abe Lincoln on the Colbert Report.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
I'm
a giant dude.
Yeah,
figure that out. But they would have me because Tim Meadows played the Black Republican.
Yeah,
so,
P.K. Winston.
Yeah, P.K. And they had
P.K. Winston is.
They wrote him. He's hilarious, but they wrote this bit where they would have Abe Lincoln go around Harlem.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
like,
I remember this.
Predominantly African American neighborhoods, and like P.K. Winston would go up and talk to somebody, and then Abe Lincoln would pop out, and they had me say shit to people. I was like, "It's a miracle no one has punched me in the face all day. I'm not recognizable. I'm just a giant dude with a beard. You're gonna get my nose broken." Like they had me going up to people and being like, "I freed you. You should vote for Republicans." And I was like, "You're gonna get me murdered on a street corner." Do people recognize Tim Meadows that frequently?
Right.
They know this is a fucking.
They're like, "It's okay. Don't punch that guy.
Yeah.
The ladies' man's
Of
here.
course.
It's fine."
And not surprisingly, those bits never aired.
I was gonna say they don't. The scenario sounds familiar.
Oh my God.
But I can't picture them
Yeah.
in the way that you can picture something you've seen.
I was putting craft services in my pocket. I was so certain that this thing was never going to air.
Smart.
I was never going to be around again.
That's actually always a smart move.
Yeah, of course. You're my favorite person on the panel so far.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
I want to actually bring it. You actually talked about something not being aired, which sort of leads me to my next question, which is a lot of the stuff we write, especially us, never gets aired ever. But a lot of stuff that you also pitch have probably been rejected in the past, and I'm assuming no, never.
100%. All the words I write go to air. It's exciting.
It's a good percentage.
Actually, so Gabe wrote on the first season of Nikki and Sarah. We were the sketch folks together. We had a bit that was. I just had no chance to begin with, but it was. I still really love it. It was a PSA about why it's better to dry hump than to have like actual sex, which included an animated mouse on roller skates named Sly the Mouse.
It was a rap parody. It's important to know. It was in the style of like a 90s...
Of like Teen Witch, Top That kind of thing. So it was like lots of people dancing, talking about why their jeans have faded.
I feel like we own the rap parody space.
That's true.
Yeah.
What about animated mouse rap parody?
We probably don't have a Sly the Mouse bit coming out, so...
It was...
Not yet.
I can't wait to see somebody make it. Yeah, that was one of my favorite. Yeah, that was an incredibly fun thing to write, and it was like early on in the show when we were like, well, I don't know, I guess we'll like at Nikki and Sarah was like, well, let's write it, like let's see if, and Nikki and Sarah both were into it, and then we wrote it, and then we read the draft, and it was just like it was really fun, but it was like, this isn't the kind of thing that goes on TV.
Yeah, it was just not for TV.
Yeah, but I don't mean to hijack the conversation totally, but in terms of stuff that doesn't make the air, like every day by 11 a.m. I have 50 jokes due. Like I have to provide 5 pages of jokes. And of those, and then you get stuff through the rest of the day. I mean, you worked at Fallon.
Yeah.
And you worked at Fallon as well as an intern. So
no. I worked at Conan, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you understand the process. So like every day there's 50 jokes due at 11 a.m. And of those 50 plus probably another 30 you might write over the course of the day in like the second sections. If I get 3 on the air, it's fantastic. I'm high-fiving strangers on the way home. It's amazing. 2, very good, solid, like not an uncomfortable conversation with my mom if she calls. 1, you've just kind of done your job. Like you're okay. 0, and like just a lot of Chris Christopherson listening to on the way home. Maybe some darker music, and like that happens. Not so frequently that I've been fired yet, but like I mean, it definitely happens. So like the vast majority of what you're doing just gets junked.
Yeah.
And it's not that I mean, I'm sure this Sly the Mouse parody is fucking hilarious, and you guys
would love it.
I'm sure I would.
It sounds like you're being sarcastic.
No, I'm not at all. I'm sure it's great, but there's like stuff that
It's the best thing I'll ever write.
But there's stuff that you write that you're proud of that that's never going to air, and I think I was told that when I was hired by people who had worked there previously, that the worst thing you can do is become so attached to your material that you argue for it, or you don't realize like it's gone, just let it go. You're like, but I really think this was a great joke, and that's happened repeatedly. Yeah, and like stuff that's gone to rehearsal and crushed in rehearsal, and it's like I don't want to do that because it's too mean. Yeah. So you just have to let it go, because if you go in and you're like, but that was a great joke, like you're going to be the first guy that they're like, why do we keep this jerk off around? Like, can't you write any more jokes? Plus, I'm a huge jerk off. You've already accurately labeled me.
Yeah,
so,
that's
what you've heard.
Yeah.
It's all my IMDb page.
We haven't met before.
You're this huge jerk off. Anyway.
But that is a good point. Yeah, there is the like, there is that sense where it's like if you argue for something too much, it's like, why don't you just do something else that we would rather have be on the show?
Yeah.
And I know there are, I think at Colbert, there are stories that that you get attached to, or that you really want to bring to air, or that you think are just either really funny or like really interesting, or stories you'd like to talk about. And I think I get the impression you're allowed to argue for them, but you really have to pick your battles. Like it's really got to be something that you're like, oh no, I think this just got lost in the shuffle and actually could be worth bringing up again.
And that's a very sort of like clear definition between arguing for your joke and sort of pitching it really well and figuring out where it crosses the line.
Yeah.
To just being like overly attached.
Yes, and I think you're allowed to, obviously, I think you're allowed to repitch something in the right moment. But it's a gray area. You have to kind of figure that out. But I think pitching something really well, making it funny, making it kind of like live in the room, people get excited about it and want to go forward with it. On the getting super attached to something can really drag you and the entire room down in a way too.
Yeah, the goal is not to piss people off. So
that traditionally not the goal of comedy.
Does it work that way in other shows as well, where you can repitch an idea, or is it just a Colbert sort of type of workspace?
I would say that's probably true across the board, right?
We're allowed to repitch a couple of jokes per day to the head writer, where you're like, hey, I think this got lost. Or you might punch it up, like you might change a couple of words, but the punchline remains the same, and the hit rate on that might be like 5% or something, where it's like they'll go back and be like, oh, that was actually good, we'll put that in. But for the most part, it's that's something I learned. It's something I learned even just writing the packet, like trying to get the job, when it was like, don't get too like I submitted for Kimmel, like other jobs, and I realized I was like almost recycling the same jokes. We're like, but this is done well on Twitter. Like, isn't it going to do well on my... And it's like, what's a fucking Kim Kardashian joke? This was relevant, like, maybe a year and a half ago. It's like, just move on. And I think you just get so attached to, like, but this is something I thought of that's funny, and you have to kind of acknowledge that hopefully you can think of something else. It's funny. At some point,
Yeah.
you don't just have to hold on to that one thing.
Yeah, there's something like realizing it is a volume business, like especially like moving
That
from.
is true.
Yeah, it totally is.
I'm glad I turned this into a Costco conversation of jokes. You remember a few minutes ago when everyone was laughing and enjoying themselves, and then Cunningham was like, "Let me tell you how many jokes I throw out every day." Burp. Great. Thanks. Everybody, you guys all came to hear how the sausage is made, right? Nobody gives a fuck.
But yeah, that you mentioned the mythical packet that everyone. I know a lot of writers try to submit everywhere. Is it usually the same process in all the shows where you have to submit a packet that's sort of reflective of like one segment of each, all the segments in the show, or is it usually the same way?
I mean, it sounds like it. Yeah, in my experience, at least, it's like it's got to be for the show you're submitting for, not just like spec stuff. You can't just give them like, here's some prose I wrote in college, and I hope you like me. It's like write segments that they could use, like stuff they could take right out of the packet and put on the air. So, it's easy. It depends like what kind of writer you are, where you will fit best. Is that obvious?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that was to piggyback on your point. You tell I've worked in shitty corporate jobs. To piggyback on your point, not to steal your thunder.
What's the takeaway here,
Yeah,
Luke?
Jesus Christ. To ramp up what you said, burp. I think you have to, I submitted dozens of packets. I've been rejected so many times. And then I submitted a packet for Night of Too Many Stars, which was a show that airs on Comedy Central. That's an autism. It's like a autism benefit that is also a fake telethon. But it actually is a telethon. It's a difficult thing to explain from time to time. If you would love to audit your tear ducts, Google Night of Too Many Stars, Katy Perry.
That video.
Yeah, it's alright. It will fucking, it's that and the first 10 minutes of Up. If those don't make you weep, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
But so my packet for that was the first time I was like, I'm gonna really focus on what Emily said, like making sure that these are as TV ready as possible, that they're in the voice of the show, and that's the first time I was like hired and staffed kind of right away. So I think it's difficult to explain how many people just don't follow instructions and assume and just like assume like, no, they'll be able to see that this is written on legal pad, but I'm hilarious. That'll be able to come through on the page, and it doesn't. Like, not at all. You have to follow the instructions and hit what they're asking you to do, because that's going to be the job every day.
The other thing that I learned in the before Nikki and Sarah was even a show, is that it's not really worth doing the packet if you're not going to do a really good job. Like, I know a lot of people will just fire stuff 100 packets into the universe and hope something sticks, and I think that's the exact wrong thing to do. So it's better to do a really good job on one and be like, look, I paid a ton of attention to what you guys do, and I nailed this, as opposed to being like, oh, I don't know, someone hired me.
I applied to the time I got hired on Fallon, the third time I'd submitted. So I write for the monologue, but I'd submitted twice to the monologue and once to the sketch. And after the first time I submitted to the monologue, the feedback to my manager was like, oh, he's better at writing monologue than he was at writing sketch, which I thought was damning me with faint praise. I still didn't get hired, but you're like, at least it wasn't as shitty as that sketch packet. And then in hindsight, that was good. But what you're saying about you only kind of get one. Isn't that a fucking Head and Shoulders commercial? But you really only get one shot at a first impression. So. We're also sponsored by Head and Shoulders, the Brooklyn slow sip of Head and Shoulders.
And before you go in, you're going to want to roll around on a bench that's covered in white paint, really get your suit lined. Sponsored by Mentos, too.
Exactly.
That was a deep cut.
I know, man. We're already talking about Head and Shoulders. I came to play.
A lot of packet writing is about dandruff.
That's the takeaway.
True.
But really, if you half-ass some packets and send them to people, you kind of can shoot yourself in the foot. Like, I've seen it happen where people have been like, hey, here's my packet, and it's, like, covered in lipstick and, like, dog-eared. And people are like, how the fuck? It came out of our printer. How does it look that shitty already? And, yeah, I mean, that type of stuff. Like, if you're going to do it 100%, and have another person that you trust look it over, and maybe a couple of people. You don't have to listen to everything they say, but at least get some feedback.
Yeah.
Don't wait until the last minute. That's something else that happens. It's not college. They're not just going to push you through because you gave them $60,000. You know? I don't know where you guys get.
Do they notice when it comes in? Do they notice these are packets that came in on the last day?
No. It's not that they notice these are packets that came in on the last day. I'm saying, like, because almost everybody sends them in at the very last possible minute.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
But, like, in terms of, this has gone through a few drafts. Okay. Like, this is something that someone has punched up. You can tell it's cleaner. It's more professional. You know, it's like as simple as, we don't have to do this for our show, but, like, the standard is, the setup will not be bolded, but the punchline is bolded. Like, like when I was submitting my packets, I would always do that. Just because it's easier. It makes it easier to read. It differentiates. It's easier on the eyes. There's some spacing in there. Like, I don't use wingdings. I don't know what other point. Are you guys mostly asleep? I can't see a single face. I feel like I'm at the world's worst sleepover.
No, I'm sure they'll have. You guys will probably have some more questions about the packets or submitting. Brooklyn is probably filled with writers trying to submit all the time. So we'll get to that. So think about that if you have any questions. But let's talk about.
There's one other thing about submitting packets was Sarah Schaefer from Nikki and Sarah wrote an interesting article a year ago or about whenever they kind of hired the staff. And she wrote a good article about what it is like to submit and things you should do. And I mean, a lot of it is stuff like that where it's like about trying to get the formatting right. And it's just full of some decent reminders. So if you're writing a packet, I would check out her article, Sarah Schaefer's article on it. So even one of the things she mentions is just like very basic, but it's just like getting the spelling of the host's name right. Like she was like, you wouldn't believe how many packets we read that just didn't get our names spelled exactly right. And she was like, that's a strike against. You got to be really good to overcome that. Be like, oh, we really want this person. They're so funny, even though they don't give a shit about us. So yeah,
And that won't happen a lot. That situation.
You got to be really good.
Yeah.
And then from there, you will I've read packets where it's like, this is fantastic. Like you'll read, if there is one job opening, they will probably get down to 20 people who are all, in all likelihood, going to end up working in the industry, doing something somewhere at some point. But it's just like kind of the luck of the draw. Like, this particular joke the host liked more than anything else in the entire packet. So that's why they got hired.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you never know what they're looking for exactly. Yeah. Either like, you never know. Like on a show like Colbert, maybe the last writer who left, like maybe they had like a really good sketch instinct, or they were like a crazy solid joke writer or something. So you never know kind of how the people at the top are assembling a team. So it doesn't, if you write a packet and you don't hear anything back or you don't get through, it doesn't mean that what you wrote is bad. Like you just never even know what they're looking for. And in the same way, I think a lot of people end up staffed on shows, especially shows that have been long running, submit multiple times. I think it's rare that somebody just breaks through on their first time especially on a long running show and is just brought up immediately. So I don't know.
And on the shows,
keep your head up.
That's takeaway right there.
Thanks.